Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Africam show. And we're starting off at none other than Old Donyo, one of the firm favorites, of course. Now, I do understand, I mean, we know this, that these elephants have been a bit of a bully. Well, some of them have been bullies recently. And earlier, when we were watching the camera, just before the show started, we saw one of the elephants chasing some of the animals as well near the waterhole. So we're going to be keeping an eye on you, Elise. And maybe think about why you're defending that waterhole so fiercely, and you seem to get fiercer or more fierce and more fierce each time we visit this waterhole. Well, a reminder to all of you that we are live and interactive, so please send through those questions and those comments. Of course, we'd love to hear from all of you. Jack DeBoer says good morning from Chesapeake, Virginia. Bridget McKinney is here as well. The NC said good morning from Seattle. I got a nice hot cup of coffee, very good. Mr. AQAE87, you say today you have coffee and milk cake. Very, very nice. Today I just have some sparkling water. I think it's quite exciting. But let's just have a look. So this elephant has moved through the waterhole to chase away that giraffe. Oh, and now the oryx have come through. How interesting. So last week we saw an elephant that specifically tried to restrict access to the waterhole he was by himself, and there was a giraffe that wanted to drink, and then he kept blocking the giraffe, moving around the waterhole, not moving away, not moving towards the giraffe, but just trying to block this waterhole. I found that so interesting. And now with this elephant walking right through the water to the other side to make sure that the giraffe doesn't come near. Now, I wouldn't say this is unusual. It's just interesting to see it happen repeatedly at the same waterhole. Now, fundamentally, this comes down to protecting resources. So elephants are not territorial in the sense that they don't hold a territory. And the whole purpose of holding a territory, which is something that we see, for example, with leopards and lions, hyena clans, the whole purpose of having a territory and securing a territory that is an area of land that is patrolled and marked and protected against the intrusion of usually the same sex. So a male leopard would allow female leopards in his territory, just not other males. But the whole point of keeping a territory is to secure resources. So within that territory, they would have access to water, access to plenty of prey, females. If it is a female in her territory, then also maybe access to good denning spots. For a leopard, access to good trees. So all those resources are secured simply by them patrolling and investing energy in keeping the territory. Now for elephants, giraffes, they don't secure territory in that same way. Now elephant bulls can display territorial-like behavior, but in the strictest sense of it, they don't have a territory. But they might protect an area against others. But really, all I'm saying then is that they want to protect resources. So I suspect that that's what we're seeing here. And the reason that they tend to be particularly fierce with this waterhole is because it's frequented by so many animals. So could it be that each one of these animals feel like an intrusion upon a resource that they feel should be theirs only? But in that case, I feel like maybe they wouldn't want to share with other elephants either. But it's almost as if the elephants are banding together and saying, we own this, as opposed to me as an individual own this waterhole. It also comes and goes, you know. Now they're letting the giraffe drink. They'll probably let the oryx drink as well. But it's almost like at first they've got to let them know who's boss. And that is a very elephant thing to do. Zygote, you are on board. Namaste to you too, Zygote. Jan Powers says, hi, everyone. Oh, wonderful to hear that you're here too, Jan. April Al says, good morning, everyone, from a snowy but sunny Connecticut. You've got your cherry iced tea, of course you do. That actually sounds really good today because it is very hot. The weather in Johannesburg has kind of stabilized. We went through a period of it being very warm but very overcast. And now the days are just clear and it's hovering between 28 and 31 degrees Celsius, which that's the temperature I thrive in. Gordon J, you say good morning to all. Good morning to you too. Look at this now. 2 giraffes are allowed to drink. I'm just wondering when those orcs are going to get brave enough to come down. Now these are fringe-eared oryx. They're a subspecies of the East African oryx, so different to the one we get here in South Africa. Down here we get the good old Semsbok, also an oryx, but a different type. I think they're one of my favorite antelope species. They really are so beautiful. The markings on their face, the taupe color of their body, something in their color is very attractive to me. I feel like when I first started watching this waterhole, exactly, Zygo, she said the others are getting brave now. I think that the oryx definitely felt a little bit more brave having the giraffe around and seeing that the giraffe were putting their heads into the water and putting their heads down, which is a very vulnerable position. But now that the giraffes have moved off, they'll have to slowly bull themselves up to come back to the waterhole. I've also found that it seems like the elephants have this reaction to other animals at the waterhole, either as soon as they arrive, as soon as the elephants arrive at the waterhole, and they want to make a point to say, I'm big and strong, and um, I'm claiming ownership over this resource almost. So when they first enter the space, or when other animals first enter the space, and then they sort of figure it out. So for me, that's a little bit confusing because it doesn't make it as clear cut why this behavior is happening. But at the same time, we know that elephants are incredibly complex. They have the ability to display empathy. We know that their cognitive processing is very advanced. So once those things, it's such a sort of like a double-edged sword, you know. Those animals that are highly intelligent, have big brains capable of uh, pretty extensive and intricate thought processes, at least, you know, from what we can interpret. High social skills, yes, those are really important and they can mean that you can optimize your survival. You may be able to solve problems better. You may find food resources, have better memory to find water at a time when you need to. But at the same time, that level of cognitive existence also brings about other things. I mean, we are a great example of that. Things like being able to form allies, relationships that will bring you something, as opposed to just typical, I get this from you, you get this from me, but almost a bit, for lack of a better non-human term, which I don't have, but can animals can sometimes display what we would interpret as maybe conniving behavior, or being sneaky. We see this a lot in vervet monkeys and baboons, maybe a little bit of jealousy. So with elephants and all their cognitive capacity, maybe it doesn't really have an end to them being protective over this resource, but more like I really don't want to share. And I'm not seeing you as a threat, but that doesn't mean I've got to share with you, you know? All right, the oryx are making their way. Do it. Zygote, you say sable are your favorite? Oh, it's been a long time since I saw it. Actually, no, it hasn't. I saw a couple of sable, but it was one on one of these game farms, you know, these areas where you see a lot of the antelope are being bred. There's one near the highway, um, on my way from Johannesburg to the Lowveld, where you see different types of animals that are all going to go find homes at reserves, but they start off like on a farm. And that was the last time I saw a sable. Still, not in the completely natural environment, though. That would be a treat. There we go. Everyone playing nicely. Oryx, come on, make your way. Oryx are very well um, arid environment adapted. So if they don't get to drink some water here, it's definitely not going to be a train smash for them. But just because they're well adapted to extreme situations doesn't mean that they've got to exist like that all the time. If resources, particularly for them, water is around, they're going to drink. And the same goes for other really well arid adapted animals like springbok. I remember there once being, at least it was anecdotal evidence of a springbok that hadn't drank water for a year. Obviously, there's other ways to get to fulfill your moisture requirements. You can do so through vegetation by feeding early in the morning when dew has landed on vegetation. All those help to get you some water. But you'll even find springbok hanging around at the waterhole if there is a waterhole to hang around it. Okay, our fringe-eared oryx are being very, very scared. You can do it. Well, maybe we can come back here because I feel like they're gonna need a moment or two. And let us head over to Hwange. We might have missed the kudu, but let's see. Oh, we've got some impala. Yes, she's gone, but it's always fun to spend some time with the impala. It's quite unfortunate that a lot of the time when I stop for impala, it's because they are, well, they're prime prey for so many predators. And that means they're excellent at giving you clues to predator whereabouts. Also, they hang around in pretty large herds. So if you are a predator, you would like to be close to some impala. But now things seem like they're very relaxed. Most of them have their heads down. It's actually not often that you see all the impalas in a herd with their head down. It's almost like they take turns. Some have their heads up while the others have their heads down, which makes sense because they want to keep an eye out. Impala is also, sorry, I'm not thinking about predators and impalas. Impalas are also such a wonderful weight, for a predator to take. If you're thinking about, let's say 40 kgs to 65, maybe 70 kgs. I mean, that's a big ram. But 40 kg Impala ewe, say 60, 65 kg Impala ram, that's such a convenient size for a predator. One of the big predators. It's a convenient size for a hyena. It's a good size for a leopard to be able to hoist up in the tree. Uh, for a lion, it could do with more. That's because lions live in prides, or at least a coalition. So it's not usually one lion that needs to eat, but whatever they kill needs to feed whoever is around that's part of their group. But for a single lion, just opportunistically manages to snag an impala, also a good size. There's a kudu in the background there. Hey, girl, you're just hanging out with the impalas. Now, kudu, a little more significant. You can see the difference. So if we say this impala ewe is about 40 kgs, where we're seeing both in front of us are ewes, females. About 40 kilograms, compare that to a kudu female, looking about 200 kilograms. Males, 250 kilograms, up to about 300, so significantly bigger. But I've seen leopards take kudu. They're just young kudu, because for a leopard to hoist full-grown kudu up in a tree, that's a task. But why are we even talking about this when we can just talk about how peaceful and lovely they are living their lives instead of talking about when they potentially find themselves in a not so living your life position? Now I feel I was rambling on and we're going to miss an elephant again. Please no. Let's head over to Tembe and see if the elephant is still around. Just having fun talking about antelopes. Sometimes they don't get the attention they deserve. Right, now we're over at Tembe. So last week, I was around this area. Well, not exactly at Tembe, but northern KwaZulu-Natal. I was near Shlushlui. And I love going to different areas where I know the cameras are positioned. Maybe not the exact area, but to just kind of get a reminder of conditions in that general space, the habitat in that general space. So I was very close to Lake St. Lucia, so that means there was a bit more of a coastal foresty vibe going on. I did see one marula tree though. But unfortunately, I was only there for a day, so I didn't see a ton of animals. But it just reminded me of the humidity, the heat in those areas. I mean, when I checked the forecast before I got to northern KwaZulu-Natal, it was 37 degrees Celsius and the humidity was 85% and not even close to raining yet. And this part of the country gets the highest rainfall. Uh, can I tell you something very cute? I I was doing some cleaning up today, and I'm a hoarder of information. So if I write something down, I just can't get rid of those pages. But anyway, I decided that I needed to go through all these things I'd kept because I have notes and information that I've written down from university, which was now quite a long time ago. And I happened to come across a chart that I had drawn, like hand colored in, um, that was denoting the rainfall in the country, different areas of rainfall. And apparently, the mountains in the east of the country, towards northern KZN, gets the highest rainfall. We hopefully can still trust information that I wrote down 15 years ago in my university books. But I think I love going through those. Well, I haven't gone through them in years, but I do plan on going through all of those because you find some really nice nuggets of information. It also helps you to kind of figure out how your understanding of things has changed. Yeah, and Darwin Lover has jumped on to be with us today as well. Hello, you two. Nice to hear your names. We've already been very, very spoiled. Started off with Ellie's giraffe, oryx, Impala's kudu, and now another elephant. Now, the other thing I like to do when I go over to different areas of the country, like different sections, is that I like to look out for the birds that I'm familiar with and listen to their call. Because you'll find that an orange-breasted, excuse me, an orange-breasted bushshrike in the Lowveld, compared to the one I'd hear in the Eastern Cape, compared to one I'd hear in KwaZulu-Natal near Tembe, or where Tembe is, they all have the same song, but their accent is slightly different. I don't know what else to call it, but I have heard birders calling it accents. But something is just a little off about, not off, something's a little different about it. And that's the beautiful thing about, well, about South Africa, that we have all these different habitats and huge. I mean, I think our biodiversity is our biggest treasure in this country. Three biodiversity hotspots, crazy amount of species, and so many specialized individuals for specialized habitats like the fynbos. But as you move through, you will still hear familiar birds, see familiar things, but just a little thing or the other has changed to better suit that particular environment. Now, this is also one of the reasons I love these cameras, because we have the cameras strategically placed all over the country and even into um, further north of the country, into Africa. It gives us this well-rounded experience of animals, because when you look at an elephant in the Lowveld or an elephant here at Tembe, they could be a little bit different to the elephants that you might see in Etosha National Park, for example, or in East Africa. Little differences. Fundamentally, they're the same, but it's noticing those little differences. The average diameter of tusks, length, weight of tusks, average heights. That's what I love. That was quite interesting. You went to the water's edge, you relieved yourself. You didn't quite have much of a drink, more like a splash about, and now you're back out in the sun. Time for some sand? No? Oh, yes. There we go. Nice. He's very good at making sure to toss the sand on the bits that are wet so he can form that nice cakey mud. But it's also absolutely useful for him to toss the dry sand onto his back. That's still going to help him protect his skin and also protect him from the heat. Sand is excellent at absorbing heat. It's also really good at not diffusing that heat too much to whatever is below it. And that's also one of the reasons that small animals like squirrels, especially those that live in dry and arid areas, you might see them scratch the top layer of sand and then push themselves into the sand. And that's a way of cooling themselves because just a top layer of sand really, really absorbs that heat. And then they kind of push away that top layer and then they've got a cool underlayer of the sand and then they put themselves onto it. So I'm wondering if elephants do that, whether it matters to them. We know that regulating their body temperature is not the easiest thing in the world because they are so chunky. So their mass skews their uh, surface area to volume ratio. So they have more mass than they do surface area. That means it's much more difficult for them to diffuse heat or get rid of heat. It's sort of like, when you wash a t-shirt and you want to put it out to dry, it's gonna dry better if you push it, if you roll it out. If you left it in a ball out in the sun, just the outside's gonna dry, the inside's not gonna dry. So by unrolling that ball, putting the t-shirt flat or hanging it, you are increasing the surface area. What portion of that area is actually going to be able to hit the air, be exposed to the air. So elephants do have a bit of a tough time to regulate their body temperature. They are a rolled up wet t-shirt, but imagine a hot one, boiled water wet t-shirt. So I wonder if they would potentially look for cooler sand, like in a riverbed or even just a couple centimeters below the surface of the ground. Zygote, you heard of boo-boo? Also one of my favorite birds. Woolly stecked knocks. I was about to say woolly necked storks. Also a nice one. Most often see them in KwaZulu-Natal, where Tembe is. Oh my goodness. Now I said Tembu because I said boo boo. What is going on? Although I do recall seeing a couple woolly-necked storks in the Lowveld as well, just not as common as it is in KwaZulu-Natal. Oh, Karu, you're here too. Oh, we were just talking about the orange-breasted bushwhack, and you said you also heard one a couple minutes ago. And a European bee-eater calling. Nice. Giving themselves a good old clean here. Critically important to survival to have well-maintained feathers. Feathers allow birds to catch prey, to not be prey, to get away from predators. It's insulation. Those are pretty important things. Getting food, not being food, being able to regulate their body temperature. Critical survival functions there. That looks like they're just straightening up. the feathers. So the way that feathers, I mean, if you've ever picked up a feather, you would know this. You know, you can sort of like tear a feather. When you're doing that, you are kind of unzipping little barbules, little hooks in the feather that keep it together. Now, those hooks are really important because if you've ever taken I was about to, if you've ever taken a packet, for example, like a plastic bag or a bin bag, and tried to be Superman and jump off something in your garden, hoping that you would fly, like I have done many a time as a child, not recently, then you would know that if there are holes in your packet, it just isn't as fun, even though you fall like a stone anyway. But if there's holes in your packet, then the air doesn't get trapped underneath like it should. So the same sort of applies for feathers in a more generalist, simplistic way. The same kind of applies for feathers. So if there's any holes, breakage in those feathers, then they won't be able to create lift as easily as they would if everything was nice and straightened out. Now, you would also know that once you do tear a feather like that, and you try to put it back together, it's almost impossible. I have tried so many times. What does tend to work, though, is if you use a little bit of water and a little bit of oil. Somehow that manages to get it looking a bit better again. But I can never rehook those barbules because I just don't have the right tools. So having the right tools, like the perfectly shaped beak, is very important. Now that brings me to another interesting discussion or interesting thought. We've always thought about bird beaks, the shape, the robustness, thickness, all those things to be associated with what they eat. So long pincer-like or forceps type beaks, perfect for putting your beak into the hole and pulling a worm out. Robust kind of nutcracker type beaks, perfect for seeds, right? So we've always thought about seed beaks in relation to what birds eat. And that is true. That's just not the full truth. The full truth is that there's two important things that beaks or bills need to do. They need to be able to allow the bird to get the prey that it needs, depending on what type of bird it is. It could be aquatic prey, invertebrates, seeds. It could be even the tongue, like a woodpecker to lick insects from beneath. What is that called? Not a branch. Oh, the word is good. The outside of a tree trunk. Kirst will help me because she knows exactly what I'm thinking, and she's probably thinking after my dyslexic moment. Bark. There you go. Tree bark. That's it. So we have all these birds have all these adaptations that we know are well suited to their food type, but their beaks also need to be able to reach all their feathers and to straighten those feathers, maintain those feathers. So the beak shape that we're seeing is not perfect for their food choice or preferred food. And it's not perfect to reach every single spot on their body. It's a happy in between where all feathers can be maintained or critical feathers can be maintained. That is a typical South African sound right there, the hadira. It's a trade-off between being able to maintain your feathers and being able to feed. And this is a great example of that. There might be spots it can't quite reach, but it won't be critical spots. MG leopard spots. You say you were late too. You were up at 3 a.m. and then you made it back to sleep. Well, I'm glad that you got some extra sleep. That's always nice. Bridget, you say, do ostriches have oil glands like other birds? No, ostriches don't. And if you think about the lifestyle of an ostrich, I think ratites in general, so ostriches, rheas, emus, cassowaries, so flightless large birds, I think all of them don't have a preening gland, um, but definitely ostriches do not. So a preening or oil gland or a uropygial gland, all same names for this little gland that's near the base of the tail that produces an oily secretion. And not just oil, there's like antibacterial, antimicrobial properties to that substance as well. And as the bird moves around, it will take some of that oil in its beak. So you might see it like, rub its beak or its face on its back so that the beak touches that oil gland, and then it will pull it through the feathers. And that preening oil is essentially for waterproofing. Waterproofing those feathers to make sure they don't get waterlogged, because even though birds may not be always at the water, they do often go near water. And the last thing you want is, for you to get waterlogged, because again, that might temporarily change the integrity, structural integrity of your feathers. But ostriches, they have a different kind of feather. You don't have flight feathers. All their feathers are sort of downy. And so oil would, if you imagine oil on down, you can imagine it gets quite clumpy. And that's not going to be helpful to them. So instead, ostriches will use like dirt, so dust bathing a lot. That really helps with parasites. And we see that often as well. You've seen, or you might have seen ostriches get down onto the ground and then shuffle their feathers about, get all the dust up in there. I mean, you see other birds do it as well, but the preening gland is really good for waterproofing. And yes, of course, all birds don't have that. Another great example of a bird that doesn't have it, a penguin. Because if it had oil in its feathers, then that wouldn't be so great for diving. African darter, same thing. So birds that are really good at diving, they're not going to they're not going to use oil, right? And if something is not useful, then it either becomes vestigial, it still exists in an animal, but it's just not being used anymore, or I guess eventually, over time, the body stops investing. When I say over time, I mean on a population. It no longer becomes useful, and then it becomes lost over time. Jean Gale, you say Tembe is so peaceful. It really is. What a lush spot. I feel it's like a little bit of a paradise for all the animals that are here. All right, let us head over to Naledi Dam and check out how the little croc is doing. I think it's the same one that we saw last week. Let us have a look, because I can definitely ID crocodiles to the mean, at the moment, I'm getting on as well, and it happens to me all the time. So welcome, grumpy old man. You're here for the last 5 minutes. I was just about to say, I'm still trying to look, just still trying to see the croc, but I just saw it. You've got the terrapins that are scurrying about. Oh, 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 are you about to eat that terrapin? My goodness, it's a bit big for you. You're a baby croc. You're going to be going after invertebrates and amphibians and stuff in this water. Not after a terrapin yet. It did look like it was going to go for it though, right? I wonder if you'll come out of the... Oh, oh, no. Oh my goodness. Is it just me or does it look like these terrapins are messing with it? Because this crocodile's still very small. So it definitely, one, doesn't have the bite force to get through a terrapin shell. And it just doesn't have the capacity to swallow something that's wider than its head just yet. Look at these terrapins. Stop being crazy. I think the terrapins are irritating it. At this age, even though it's mostly going to be able to go after these small animals, very small fish, invertebrates, basically any small animal you can find in the water, nothing big, not even big fish, not big catfish, not big terrapins, definitely not any mammals that are coming down to drink, even though it can't go for that. And that's actually a really important thing. Look, you're just messing with the crocodile. You're just being irritating. Crocodile's over it. Yeah. You guys must watch out because yes, he can't get through your tail, but a well-positioned bite. Oh, you got something. What did you get? Or maybe you just missed. Whoa! I say they must watch out because if they mm, push their neck out too much, I wouldn't be surprised if this croc gets a hold of it, especially if they keep bumping into him and being irritating like this. What I was getting at earlier is that though this might not be the food that this crocodile can eat right now at this size, there would still be a recognition of the fact that this is something that is edible. It's not as if, once they turn 1.5 meters long, suddenly something snaps and they're able to recognize that this is prey. It just all comes down to what they can. Look at you, what are you doing? Careful your neck. Oh, this is a lesson. This is a lesson, everyone. If you are being bullied, get yourself out of the situation. Oh, but he's a croc, isn't he? Exactly, Karu. These are attack terrapins. Terrapins are sneaky, though. Or maybe sneaky is the wrong word. They're a little like hyenas. They're tenacious and they have quite an attitude. They don't seem to find a problem in anything they do, and seem to know just how far they can push other animals. What's hilarious, though, is that they would never do this to a full-grown adult Nile crocodile. It's just because it's little. I mean, in the same way, you know how we started the show talking about protecting resources? Maybe maybe the terrapin is doing a similar thing. And this instinctive behavior to protect its resource. Oh, this is too funny. Watch, this crocodile is going to get its own back. You know, I feel like in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, we might have another incident like we had at Victoria Falls Safari Lodge when we had that crocodile that kept attacking the elephants. Maybe here at Naledi, we'll have a crocodile that for some reason just goes after the terrapins. And then we'll all remember this. Anyway, on that note, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure, whether you joined in the last 5 minutes or right at the beginning. I love it when you're all around, and I love to take you on this journey through the African bush. Thank you for your questions and your comments. I will see you all on Thursday, I guess. And have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.